Sinn Spezialuhren is celebrating its 60th anniversary. To present our latest innovations in our anniversary year, we're welcoming a special guest who's been a follower of our brand for decades, even when facing sports challenges at -40 degrees in Canada's Yukon Territory. He says about himself that he's fascinated by anything with gears: watches, bicycles, e-bikes, motorcycles, cars and motorhomes. So in other words, toys for big boys. Technology is in his blood. His career began at Porsche. Later, he packaged this passion in expert terminology. As a hired journalist for daily papers at first, the Motor Press in Stuttgart, and for the DPA. For 20 years he's been writing and photographing freelance for, among others, the German wristwatch trade journal Armbanduhren and the Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. He has a personal foible for chronographs and technical innovations. His reports are authentic and hands-on, because he always writes about his own experiences with the product. That's why we appreciate him so much and are thrilled to meet up again with Martin Häusermann.
Grüß dich, Martin.
Hello, Martin. Great to have you here, that you've come to our 60th anniversary. And I want to get right to it and present to you our anniversary model, limited to 600 pieces, model 144 in black.
So, first, thanks for the invitation. It's just great that we can get together again now after almost 1 year, and on just such an occasion as this. I really feel honoured to be one of the first to see these watches, especially this watch, because it reminds me a little bit of my very first watch of all, also matte black from back in the 80s. Oh, that has turned out wonderfully.
As I said, limited to 600, and it's only available as a set like this with a solid bracelet, like you have, and with a silicone strap. Both straps are included, and the customer also has the opportunity to switch them out, him or herself. The tool's included.
But here you have to be a little handy with the tool.
Yes, the model has been in the collection since 1974. That was before my time, before I took over the company in 1994. But back then, with mineral glass and not with the technology we have today. Today, the watch is 20 bar pressure resistant, meaning 200 meters waterproof, has sapphire crystal glass, and that on both sides. And now it has another technology I explained to you once in a very special way, our AR dehumidifying technology. That's it. You already know it from other watches. And what a dew point is, I explained that to you too in a special way back then. Do you remember at the trade fair?
That I can remember very well at your stand at the fair.
And that's how I want to explain it to you again now.
Okay.
It's the same sparkling wine, isn't it? We had Sinn's sparkling wine back then too, didn't we?
Indeed we did. I know it well.
With the humidity here in this room, I'd estimate the dew point to be around 10 degrees Celsius. And the drink, let's say around 5 degrees. So then there's a little bit of moisture on the glass.
I noticed that. When air condenses on the cold glass and creates water droplets on it, that's then the famous dew point.
Exactly. And the drier the air, the lower the dew point.
To 60 years of Sinn.
60 years.
Yeah, 60 years of Sinn is quite a long time. But we've known each other for a long time too. It's been a good 20 years now. That's also why I put on this watch this morning. This, as you call it, multifunctional chronograph, on which you really can read an unbelievable number of things. This is also really my first Sinn watch. And at that time I was with you in Fultjen, when you were developing this watch for an extreme sporting event in Canada, the Fulda Challenge. And the special thing was, I was allowed to take it off on a field test right away. Used it for a whole week at temperatures down to -40 degrees Celsius. And that's why it's a very special keepsake for me.
Great, I'm glad you have such good memories of that. Yes, back then we made our first watches with AR dehumidifying technology down to minus 45 and up to plus 80 degrees Celsius. This watch can withstand those. And the watch here with AR dehumidifying technology, we've filled it here with protective gas that has an extremely low dew point of less than minus 100 degrees. And so that it also remains dry inside the watch, we put a drying capsule inside it too.
So that ensures that the watch glass doesn't get condensation on it even at minus 40 degrees or colder. It doesn't fog up.
You see it's white now behind the glass. Then, when over time it absorbs moisture, it turns blue. We want to make sure that there's no humidity in the watch. That's why we've filled it with protective gas that's appropriately dry. Over the years, the capsule will then turn blue, and due to the dry air inside, the lubricant, the oil, keeps longer. That's why we give a 3-year warranty on watches with AR dehumidifying technology.
But when it turns blue, it alerts you that it's time to bring the watch into you for service.
You don't have to, it just becomes a normal watch, but it shows that you can have it exchanged here. That's an easy process.
How's it coated?
The watch is first texturemented, and onto this texturemented surface, we then apply a black hard coating. We've applied it especially to the texturemented surface so that the eggshell effect doesn't occur. If the lower layer is soft, if the case is not hardened, then if you bang the watch on some object, it's the black hard coating that cracks. And that's what we want to avoid here. We're the only ones who do, the Sinn company.
Yes, I can still remember my first watch, and that's how it was. There wasn't this technology back then. It was actually anodized black, and as soon as you banged it against something, you saw that on the metal at once.
So this here will hold up for a long time in this form.
And it stays looking good.
Perhaps now, briefly, to the red hands. They are particularly bright. I don't know whether it works like this. You can shine the light on them yourself.
That is totally cool.
If you take a very careful look at the dial, you'll see that the 60 is displayed there in red. That's supposed to mean 60 minutes, but because it's in red, it points to our 60th anniversary.
That's an extremely practical anniversary for a watchmaker.
And the white counters, good, we didn't have those back then. They're now special so that you can also better distinguish this watch from the past model. I also think it comes across really well too.
Yes, it has a very calming effect because the white counters just stand for the chronograph function. The red hands, so this interplay of hands, someone really thought all this through so well.
The crown is screwable. I simply can't list all the things we have here in this watch. It's a little techno pack.
And it also has a really nice size. I just wore it on my wrist.
People felt it was a very large watch in its time. Today, with 41 diameter...
You're more in lower mid-range.
Yes, it's a large watch, but there are larger ones.
Now, I just have to take a quick look at the silicone strap. People really didn't do something so daring back then. In those days, a sports watch had to have a massive bracelet, but that it now has a silicone strap. I find it was really well done. Above all because the silicone strap picks up on the shape of the case in a really lovely way. And as far as wearing comfort is concerned, I know from my own experience, I hugely appreciate a silicone strap.
A silicone strap is really very comfortable to wear.
Also nice. And perhaps we have to say it one more time. It's also beautiful because here it immediately slopes off very steeply. So it also fits really well on thin wrists. So, when we look at both watches, then we know what is meant by the term timeless. That means a watch in the collection since the 70s, virtually unchanged except for a little freshening up of the optics. I find that truly very notable. And I also find that it really fits well with the anniversary this year.
Thank you. That's a wonderful compliment.
The most important details at a glance. Sports chronograph for our 60th anniversary. Launched in 1974. Set limited to 600 pieces. Case with black hard coating on a tegument technology basis. AR dehumidifying technology. Sapphire crystal glass on both sides. Waterproof and pressure resistant to 20 bars.
Lieber Martin, ein weiteres Modell zum
Dear Martin, a further model for our 60th anniversary, Model 104 with metallic green dial. We've elaborated on a colour here, but taken care that it remains easily readable.
What's the reason to bring colour into play here? Because I already know the watch, but always only in totally classic black and white.
Green is really in right now with customers, and we follow what our customers want. The watch, of course, again has sapphire crystal glass on both sides, is waterproof, 20 bar, and has all the technical specifications we put in our watches.
Okay, so the special features of this watch are now the dial. Is it coated?
It has a metallic finish, you know that from cars.
Oh, I see. Not anodized or something.
No, Eloxal coating. It's a metallic coating and therefore shines like one.
That's beautiful. Shimmers a bit too when you hold it at different angles. I really like that.
Also wir haben die
No, we haven't limited it. You can buy as many of them as you want.
Yes, it's stylish and still faithful to the Sinn gene.
Exactly what we wanted to express with it, exactly.
The classic pilot watch with shimmering metallic green dial. Case made of stainless steel, polished. Captive pilot's bezel with minute ratcheting. Sapphire crystal glass on both sides. Waterproof and pressure resistant to 20 bars. Low pressure resistant.
Martin, wir haben auch
Martin, we've also added a new dial option to our successful model 358. And what you're holding in your hand, it's a dial with a decorative grinding. After the dial is galvanized, this decorative grinding is applied to the dial by hand with a brush, meaning that every dial looks different.
jedes Zifferblatt anders aus.
So that's like in the U1, the anniversary model you've brought out.
If you remember that. Yes, as with the U1DS, exactly. And here, just like with the U1DS, every dial is applied individually by hand.
Then grind it once over and you get... If you were to observe this under a magnifying glass, then you'd probably be able to recognize the difference between one dial and the next.
Each dial is therefore one of a kind.
And what I really like here is that it disrupts the single color totalizers. That's what the structure of this grinding does. And I find it makes for a really great accent. And one thing I'm personally happy about time and time again is that you've stopped yourself from slicing into any of the numbers. Instead, the display simply has clarity and distinction. I really like that a lot.
The watch you see here is with a solid bracelet, but it's actually available with any kind of strap.
Although I think it works especially harmoniously with just this strap because it's something a bit rough, the structure of this dial, and therefore fits the rough surface of the canvas strap.
Should I give it away? We laid it down here precisely for that reason.
Ah,
Yes, sapphire glass. About the sapphire glass here, both sides have sapphire glass, of course, I still need to say. The top has a conspicuously domed sapphire glass, ground polished inside, domed so that the watch, the case, can remain a bit flatter.
something like this really only used to work with plexiglass.
Precisely.
Today you just take a whole block of sapphire crystal glass and grind it out so long until you get this contour.
Yes. That is very complex, by the way, and much more expensive than flat or just domed sapphire glass.
I really like this, particularly when you look at the watch like this in profile. It gets another sort of really elegant flair this way.
Yes, and the same watch, the same model 358, we also have with a blue dial, galvanic blue. It has a really special shimmer to it, and with ivory-coloured hands. But the contrast, too, has also remained good in each case.
Well, this blue, on the other hand, reminds me of a watch of yours from earlier on, the Arctic, that also had a really brilliant galvanic blue dial, although this one seems to be a bit darker.
It's now quite a beautiful, elegant, dark blue, very deep blue.
It's like the evening sky a pilot sees outside the cockpit. And in that sense, also really nice for a pilot watch.
So I'll give it to you now, for your wrist. Another thing to tell you about this watch is that it has sapphire glass on both sides, that it is pressure resistant to 10 bar, both colour dials can be delivered unlimitedly, and, not to forget, the famous AR dehumidifying technology.
Many wonderful options, also due to the combinations with the straps. Whether you like it tone in tone with this strap and blue, or with the khaki-coloured and the cross-hatched dial, so that really everyone who likes this watch should be able to find the suitable model.
And here, the most important features at a glance. The traditional chronograph 358 SA Pilot Series with new dial options. Dial with decorative grinding. Dark blue electroplated dial with sunburst decoration. AR dehumidifying technology like all 358 models. Sapphire crystal glass on both sides. Waterproof and pressure resistant up to 10 bars or 100 meters.
We
have given the U50 a mother-of-pearl dial and limited it to 500.
There's a lot of ocean in there, and I mean that in the true sense of the term.
Indeed, I'll show you here when you shine a light on the watch. This corresponds to light at night, so the watch lights up even though it has black hands and black indices. It all lights up at night.
Only the mother of pearl doesn't.
Not as bright, however, as on a watch with white indices.
It's a bit flat for a U.
Yes, it is. It's the one with only 50 bar, only 500 metres diving depth. That's why we were able to make it flatter.
You don't get that deep in any swimming pool on Earth.
The watch is made of German submarine steel. It is tegmented here for this watch and given a black hard coating.
But with a classic diver's bezel.
The classic captive diver's bezel can only turn it to the left.
And it's limited to how many?
500.
You'll not long have many of those 500.
German submarine steel. I brought along something for you. This is for the case. You know the advantages of German submarine steel?
That it doesn't rust.
Exactly. It doesn't rust in salt water and is particularly resistant to salt water. It is, of course, in any case, fully sufficient in terms of stability, even better than most stainless steels. It allows itself to be easily tegmented, meaning surface hardened. This is the blank for the crown because in this watch we have really made everything out of German submarine steel in the case.
And it's actually milled out of that entire piece of material there.
It's really made of the complete material. Good, of course, it's separated off, but from the full piece of material, yes. There's no other way to do it. And then we have to purchase several tons of it so that we can get it in the proper size.
And where do you manufacture the case? That is surely not easy to process.
We have a case manufacturer in the town of Glashütte in Saxony. in the famous and well-known Glashütte. Almost 40 people work for us there. They manufacture all our technologically demanding cases.
How can I imagine that with this German submarine steel? There aren't any submarines, old submarines lying around getting scrapped.
Well, there are now a few submarines docked at the port of Hamburg with holes in them punched out by us. So, for submarines themselves, submarine steel has the following advantages. It is very ductile, meaning it does not tear when deformed, and it is non-magnetic. It has a highly non-magnetic quality to it, and this means that a submarine doesn't face the danger of orienting itself north to south. Normal steel is more magnetisable, and this one isn't. For the watch, it also has important advantages too in not being magnetisable. This watch is also certified by the successor company to the Germanic Lloyd in Hamburg, and that means certified in accordance with European diving equipment standards and for pressure resistance. Pressure resistance is actually 25% above the nominal pressure, so if we say here 50 bar, which is 500 metres, then they test it at 625 metres, and that means for 2 hours. To date, we're the only company that has their diving watches tested based on these two norms.
And therefore it truly is, even though it presents itself as quite stylish, a real instrument.
The
watch is available with 3 strap options. Here you are holding the watch in your hand with a silicone strap. A silicone strap is comfortable to wear and is not as heavy as a solid bracelet. In spite of this, we will probably sell the solid bracelet the most. The customer will probably like that most often. It's also available with a leather strap if you like that too.
Sure, although I really don't see the point in having a diving watch with a leather strap, and my favourite would definitely be the silicone strap. But I'm prejudiced here because, myself, I have 2 watches with silicone straps and really appreciate them.
I can understand, because I also usually wear a watch with a silicone strap.
Oh, and if I were introducing the watch in a journal, in the Armbanduhren for example, I'd already have the suitable headline. It would be something like, "So, you want to make some waves?"
And here, the most important features of the U50S Mother of Pearl S at a glance. The diving watch made of German submarine steel with a mother of pearl dial, limited to 500. Made of high-strength seawater resistant German submarine steel with black hard coating on a Tegement technology base. Tested in accordance with European diving equipment standards and certified by DNV-GL. Like all U50s, waterproof and pressure resistant to 500 meters, equivalent to 50 bars, certified by DNV-GL.
We're in our anniversary year and have given my favourite model for ladies a new blue dial.
Why is it your favourite model?
Because it has new technical content. It's even a quartz watch. That's unusual for Sinn. But we have shielded this quartz mechanism from outside to inside, magnetic field protection, but above all from inside to out. Because what not many know, a quartz mechanism radiates. Every second, a small magnetic field surge. And nerves, as electric conductors, pick up on these, and there is a homeopathic electric shock in your arm. That doesn't bother most people, but when you know it, it can bother you. So here we've shielded against this. That can't be measured, even with lab equipment. It can't be measured what still comes out of this in magnetic field radiation.
So it's sort of invisible health protection.
Something like that. This is why we've chosen a quartz movement, because it lets us design the watch to be wonderfully flat. Every other mechanism would be built up taller.
Yeah, and that also helps make it, although it's here now with a massive bracelet, really comparatively light.
There's something else to say about this quartz movement. It's from the ETA, and it's a quartz movement with the highest precision, with temperature compensation, meaning if you just let the watch run, it would run about 2 years on the battery. Then it would run every year only plus minus 10 seconds maximum.
That is sensational precision.
ein sensationeller Wert.
Now to the case options. The dial is new, the colour of the dial is new. Here we have rimmed the glass in 18-karat gold.
Mit 18-karätigem Gold das Glas eingefasst.
Is it all gold or leaf?
All of it, all in gold, 18-karat gold. And here in this case, yellow gold, as you can see. With the blue, it creates a lovely effect, I think.
Yes, that is a beautiful contrast between the warm gold tone and the cool blue.
Im kühlen Blau.
So another question about the dial. Is it coated?
Auch lackiert.
The coating is galvanically generated.
Oh, galvanic generated.
A blue coating is very susceptible to UV light. And so, when we make blue, we then create that blue metallically, meaning galvanically. And then it is resistant to UV radiation.
Farbständig.
Sodass die Farbe
So that the colour still looks beautiful even after 10 years.
And here we have a white gold ring furnished with 68 top Wesselton diamonds.
Wesselten Brillanten versehen.
Those are diamonds in the top Wesselton quality.
Steht.
68 of them, and rimmed in white gold.
Und in Weißgold gefasst.
With both these models,
18-karat white gold here.
you probably have to treat them a bit more carefully. If they're on top is so lovely.
Yes, but the watch is still waterproof. The model has been available for quite a while now, but not with this beautiful blue dial.
434 series, the stylish ladies' watch with blue dial. High precision quartz movement, temperature stabilized. Special Q technology, which means shielding the electromagnetic pulses emitted by the quartz movement. Appliques meticulously attached by hand. Sapphire crystal glass. Waterproof and pressure resistant to 10 bars.
Martin, this is the Narbo 17 that was developed at the end of the 70s for the Tornado program and was then built into the cockpit.
Und war dann im Cockpit eingebaut.
Ich finde sehr bemerkenswert.
I find it noteworthy, by the way, that mechanical clocks are built into products as high-tech as fighter jets. I find it fascinating.
Well, you know, they of course have to withstand several Gs, so they had been particularly well tested. But then we considered that we should just create a wristwatch also with a minute gauge out from the middle, and in addition developed for it our SZ01 movement. And the result is this watch here, model 717, reminiscent of the Narbo 17, so we named it model 717.
Also das Ding ist ein Brett.
Okay, so this thing is a board. It's unbelievable. I also think you were right to save this for last because after this, the excitement would quickly ebb. That's why this is for me the crowning achievement. It fits perfectly with this anniversary year.
It does, and it really is a new development. It's not a variation.
Uhr ist tegmentiert.
The watch is tegumented, black hard coated, and therefore especially scratch resistant, and has AR dehumidifying technology, and protective gas, of course, it's got it all. But above all, here you can rotate the glass together with the bezel.
Und der Vorteil hier ist,
And the advantage with this is that when the outer scale runs inside, it just runs closer to the inner scale, on the watch scale,
And near the hand.
and closer to the hands, see?
no?
Wenn man das dreht, ist
When you rotate it, it's quite hard to move, which means it's harder to set it wrong by mistake. And in spite of that, it's really just super to set it evenly. Though honestly, I ask myself how you got it so tight.
wie kriegt man sowas dicht?
You'd like to know why the watch is so tight, even though you can rotate the glass and everything?
Yeah, that's just very hard to do.
And I can show this to you now using this example here. That is, here we have made a bezel to be detachable so that here the seal inside is visible.
Sichtbar ist. Und mit dem Drehring dicht
So with the bezel the watch is sealed, and that with radial pressure grouting.
war in radialer Verpressung. Das heißt also,
This means that the inner diameter
Presses here on this. And then the inner surface of the bezel presses against the...
outer surface of the bezel.
outer surface of the bezel.
On the inner diameter, so on the inner side of the sealing bezel, the O-ring, that's how the watch is sealed.
Diese Dichtung ist übrigens
This seal, by the way, is made of a highly resistant plastic we use for almost all our diving watches.
für fast alle Taucheruhren verwenden.
Und diese
And this seal, it then probably also has to be lubricated a bit so that the whole thing doesn't get out of shape.
Exactly, this is where a special grease is applied.
Yes, of course. I find the operation of it here makes total sense. For one thing, because it's very similar to its precursor. That's exactly how it was solved here. That's really how it's done because pilots all wear gloves when flying. A crown here would be difficult to operate.
Yes, that's the great advantage. That is the huge advantage of this construction for this model.
Besides the technical highlights you just explained here, something I really like a lot about this watch is the extremely clear dial. So everything is so clear and distinct for reading. If you let me show this to you here. The seconds, meaning the stopped seconds, as well as the stopped minutes, are really intuitively readable. You were able to do without all the other totalizers, and that makes it really super. Super easy to read, and beautiful too, that the typology has actually been taken over one-to-one from the precursor model.
1:1 vom Vorbild übernommen wurde.
I have to put it on, because that does interest me indeed, whether such a big block really works on my thin wrist. But I really have to say, under an elegant shirt wristband, I would now have a bit of trouble. But really, it is a perfect instrument watch. So then you have really succeeded in bringing a navigational onboard clock to the wrist. Even my relatively thin wrist. The watch isn't limited?
Die ist nicht limitiert.
It's not limited. We haven't limited this one.
That's great. So, Lothar, thank you very much that I was allowed to be here. Here it's so similar to the presentation at the fair, even if there aren't any trade fairs taking place right now. That makes it all the nicer that you've presented to me and to others in the audience these new watches.
präsentiert hast.
I really like it. It's a wonderful cross-section, and I'd just like to commend you on it. Each watch is a genuine Sinn.
Ist eine echte Sinn.
Thank you. You couldn't have said anything nicer.
A glance at Model 717. The cockpit wristwatch. 60-minute stop function from the dial center. Black hard coating on a Tegiment technology base. AR dehumidifying technology. Sapphire crystal glass. Interior pilot's bezel with luminous key mark. Waterproof and pressure resistant to 20 bars.